Okay, so it's just me and Frost here today. We're gonna be talking about just random stuff. I thought about doing a little bit about gaming and journalism because we're so close to E3. I kind of already did kind of predictions towards E3. This is more like the landscape of journalism and what it looks like. I can kind of start with you. What do you think the landscape right now is looking or how it looks um, within gaming?
Uh, I'd say right now gaming is kind of having a little bit of a crisis as far as when it comes to journalism and stuff goes. A lot of people don't know who exactly to trust, what reviewers they should watch, who to pay attention to, and it's hard to trust a lot of reviewers nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, when we have these journalists who are getting banned, which we saw last year with Kotaku getting banned because um, more and more I see myself actually defending publications and their decisions and what they actually represent uh, compared to the journalists who always bitch about um, like equality and stuff like that. When it comes to games, we need more strong female heroes. Uh, and we saw that last year where all these SJWs were so satisfied, but when you saw the statistics, there were less female protagonists compared to the year before, where they were all bitching about how bad it was.
I mean, I don't have a problem with gaming companies that personally subscribe to the SJW type mindset. I mean, they're allowed to produce content too. What I have a problem with is companies bending over to these kind of people when their original vision wasn't of that mindset.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I have the same sentiment when come. I mean, supposedly the guy from No Man's Sky or the director behind it is supposedly a massive SJW, but I don't really care if the game is good. As
I
long as the
mean,
game is good, I don't really care.
it's like with the Star Wars thing. The people who made the recent Star Wars movie decided to use Ray as a character and decided to do that on their own. It wasn't something they were forced into, unlike the thing with Street Fighter and what was the character's? I forgot the character's name, but her butt slap pose. It wasn't
Oh
something
yeah,
like that where there's like such an outcry, and the only reason they moved it was because of a negative backlash by a few Puritans.
yeah. We've seen all the censorship. I'll recommend for anyone watching this to look at Censored Gaming, the gaming channel. He's really good with that type of stuff, like exposing censorship within games. Um, and we just see more and more these outlets just with the IGN stuff recently. I had an entire stream just going through that as well, where IGN now was basically shilling for Anita Sarkeesian.
Interesting. IGN shills
So
like no other.
yeah, but and you have just I tweeted it out earlier today. I don't know if you saw that tweet, but
I haven't been on Twitter today.
okay, yeah. Well, I took a screenshot of the Ratchet and Clank review, and you have to remember it's a player game, and one of the cons was that it's too lonely at times.
It's just Ratchet and Clank is metal.
In a single player game, you're lonely.
I find that interesting.
Here, let me read out the cons and pros. Here, amazing is what they say. Ratchet and Clank is a combination of everything Insomniac has done with the series over the past 14 years. And here are the pros: absolutely gorgeous, creative weapons, rewarding upgrades, charming story, and the cons: occasionally lonely.
I mean, it's a single player game, and kind of part of the reason in the story why Ratchet has become such a hero is because he's doing everything alone.
Yeah, so I don't really get that. But it isn't just the gaming landscape. It's just before we went on, um, you talked about the Warcraft movie.
Yeah. I was talking about how there seems to be a huge disparity between the audience ratings of it and the critic ratings of it.
Yeah. Do you want to read out a few of the criticism or of the reviews, like the headlines?
Um, One second. I'm gonna bring it up. I was recently on Rotten Tomatoes looking up critic reviews, and sometimes you see a score, and it's like a one-liner about something in the movie that they didn't like or whatever. So I go to say one review in particular on the website New Republic, and the reviewer Mike is basically saying that about part of the way through the movie, he pretty much didn't want to be there anymore, and
Yeah,
that the movie didn't have enough exposition between fans and non-fans. While I do think it's a valid point, I think that expecting a movie to fully everything and give away all its secrets is also kind of unreasonable.
yeah, and we've seen this with gaming reviews where they don't even bother finishing the game, and review it afterwards, and say like it's the shittiest game ever. When Jim Sterling, I like to use this example where he didn't even finish Final Fantasy 13 and give it like a 3 out of 10 or something. Not that Final Fantasy is the greatest game ever, but it's not a 3 out of 10. It's really not that bad.
It's like everybody seems to also be the World of Warcraft movie to things like J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings series or things like Game of Thrones. And it's really none of those things. So I think going into it with that type of mindset that that's the type of movie that you're going to get is already setting it up for failure.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm seeing that Pesham is in the chat. If you want to come on, you could come on because there were two other people who were supposed to be on, but they didn't show up. So um, yeah, but I also use this Batman versus Superman example with the Rotten Tomatoes where it has a 22 percent approval rating, and I saw a few of the reviews giving it like a 1 out of 10. I mean, I can understand people giving it I don't know, a 4 or 5 out of 10. But calling it like a 1 out of 10 where it's the worst movie ever, it's retarded.
It's not. It's still not as bad as The Room.
Yeah, because The Room has a 32 percentage, and you have Sharknado, all these terrible movies that have a higher approval ratings of actually good movies, which people seem to like, but the reviewers, it's the same thing with Gaming Press, where they gave the Gone Home is like an 85 on Metacritic and has, I don't know, 35 from users.
On Rotten Tomatoes right now, on the tomato meter, it's sitting at a 26% with the average rating for critics being a 4 out of 10. But the audience score is at a 83% and the average rating is a 4.2. That's a huge discrepancy.
Yeah. Um. So
Well, I think the critics are critics, and that's kind of their job to critique movies. I do think that they had a couple expectations of this movie that it didn't meet. And there seems to be a lot of complaints about it being a movie full of fan service. And while that's not always the best thing to base something on, that's pretty much the only reason this movie even exists. And fan service in itself isn't a bad thing. So complaining about it being fan service is pretty much a non-point.
yeah, pretty much. Um, yeah, I'm seeing Mitch and Fisherman. Just let me know if you guys want to come in. Yeah,
And
it's only only
and
us.
some of these reviews, they even say fans of the game will be pleased. So even in some of these bad reviews, they acknowledge that it's a good movie for fans, but yet that still had no effect on their score.
Yeah. Um, I just think right now there's a there's a huge disconnect between journalists or reviewers and the actual audience. Um, I mean, even though uh, the Transformer movies are brainless movies, people like to like shut off their brain and just watch a explosion happen on a screen. Um, but people won't go to like an artsy, uh, trying to be smart movie, and nobody wants to see that stuff.
I think there's I think the biggest difference is that for a lot of the like Michael Bay films, it's like people don't go to a Michael Bay film expecting this long, incredibly complex woven narrative. They go there expecting explosions and excitement and entertainment. And while they realize that that's not Michael Bay films aren't like the best movies out there, they people at least give them credit for being entertaining. There's something to watch.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, when I see these reviewers, both movies lately, but mostly in gaming, are praising these. Sorry, I'm hearing a little bit of echo, moving the mic a little bit. Um, where there is such a huge disconnect, it's it doesn't really bode well for gaming, and this is why I actually trust the publications or the publisher of a game more compared to the journalist.
If you look at something like Neighbors 2, for instance, the critics gave it a 62, while audiences gave it a 53.
What movie was that?
for Neighbors 2 Sorority Rising. And I'm looking through a lot of these reviews, and it doesn't seem like there's such a huge disconnect for these other films as there is for the Warcraft film. And maybe that is because of the lore aspect, but I don't think that's enough to drag the film down. Why couldn't you just enjoy the film? I don't know. It seems like the critics seem keen on trying to compare it to things like Lord of the Rings, which it's not. And it's a shame that like 50% of the reviews mention Lord of the Rings or R.R. Martin.
Yeah, it's the expectation again. I think the at least with gaming, they they're inside a bubble, and well, also when I see these see the journalists pushing the narrative. I mean, I'm fine with the games with Lara Croft or the new what's it called, Horizon Zero Dawn or whatever it's called, uh, something like that. I can't remember what off the top of my head. Um, but uh, having these female protagonists, that doesn't really. I don't really care if they're a female or a male in the lead role. It's more of the quality of the movie, and it goes back to like the Ghostbusters. It's gonna fail in the box office. I'm pretty sure of it because all the shit that the director and everyone else is saying about the fans, and you actually won't hear that from like EA or something like that. You won't hear them shit all over the fans. Just listen to the reaction where the CEO of what's his, I can't remember his name, but of Activision, where the Infinite Warfare got downvoted to hell, and he didn't shit all over his fans doing it.
I'm
Instead of just be condescending and patronizing to the fans, listen to what they have to say and improve with it to the when you do the next game.
Now I'm looking at the comparisons for other movies, like the critic versus audience reaction, and no other film has such a big chasm in what people think. It's like for the World of Warcraft movie, it's like there's like a 50% difference.
Yeah, there's also a over 50% difference with Batman versus Superman.
That one, I'm looking at that one now, and that's 30% for Rotten Tomatoes.
I did catch that.
Oh
What did
no,
you say?
it's 40% for Rotten Tomatoes.
From
But even
fans?
fans voted the movie at 66%, and it's for 27 for the critics.
Yeah, exactly. It was over 70%. It's probably gone down a little bit.
Yeah, but it's like even the fans say the movie was kind of meh. But for the Warcraft movie, it got an 80% from the audience. And the audience is clearly isn't not just including fans of the movie, because not everybody that went to see this movie was a fan, and they say that in their reviews. But yet they were still able to give it a somewhat okay score compared to the critics that constantly compare the movie to movies that it's not.
Yeah.
It's like you said before, there seems to be a huge disconnect. And I don't know if that's an ideological disconnect or an expectation, but there is something happening with gaming and just critics and journalists where they're just not getting the same things from it that we have.
Yeah, I just think it's the political leaning with these people. And again, I'm using E3 as a reference because every year you see E3, um, you hear when the fans say something. Usually the developer are listening to the fans, not the freaking journalists. Um, I have a perfect example of I did it on a stream once where went through the where Tom McShay he's with or he appeared on the 25 invisible benefits thingy, and he got into a discussion with um or not a discussion, a heated debate of realism in video games, and like bashed the game because um, he said that the game was glorifying violence and said it was supposed to be authentic, but I called it out to be shit because you didn't die. A war wasn't supposed to be fun and shit like that. And but even though Medal of Honor didn't, or Warfighter was called, didn't really do that well with sales, people still bought it just because one journalist had a disagreement. This didn't mean it totally bombed. Um, and I'm just scared that the publications and the developers are gonna listen to these journalists who don't really have to they seem to have a connection with um, with the audience and the actual consumer, and just asking or pressuring these developers to put in shit that nobody wants. And I can't press this enough. I don't see the journalists when they review that they mention the microtransactions or the season passes or whatever. I don't think they're being consumer friendly. All they can't even review the game properly most of the time. Um, it just frustrates me.
I don't have a problem with journalists putting their own opinions into a review or an article, but why can't you just come out and say that? It's like
Oh yeah.
gonzo journalism. It's completely subjective, but people who are good gonzo journalists don't try and pass off their opinions or their subjectiveness as the morally correct thing to be, or as if their opinions are objectively true. They're just simply stating their experience. And a lot of journalists don't seem to be able to differentiate gonzo journalism from giving a proper review of a game.
Yeah. I want to hear from the chat. I know there are only 6 people watching, but what do you guys want from a review? I want to also hear from you, Frost. What when you see a review, you can also differentiate between a movie and a game because they're kind of different. Well, but what do you expect when you read a review?
When I read a review of this goes for most pieces of media for me, by the way. I want a review on the audio. I want to know if the audio is interesting. Does it fit the mood? Is it properly used to create atmospheres? I want to know about audio quality. Do you have a lot of electronic interference in the audio quality? because that can happen if you render something on improper hardware. I want people to talk about the art, not just the art quality, but also the art textures, the art themes. Does the art fit the setting and things like that? A lot of reviews now seem to be about graphical fidelity and gameplay, and it's like there's just so much more to gaming than just that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's actually a good point with art, but that's again a little bit subjective. When it comes to the art part, when you review a game.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely. But I mean, if you have a subjective opinion about the art, state it and say, let people know that this is your subjective opinion about the art. This is what you experience. This is what you think of it. I want to know what's going through your head when you're experiencing this, but don't try and pass it off as if that's what everyone else is going to experience.
yeah,
Because a
that's
lot of
true.
journalists have been caught doing that, trying to pass off their personal experience as if that's what everyone else will also get from it, and that's just not the case.
Oh yeah, that's true. Especially I like to use this example with Carolyn Pettit, where she reviewed GTA 5 for GameSpot, and she made her opinion seem like it was objective when she called GTA a misogynistic game, and that's a subjective opinion. Not
Trying
I
to
don't know
call
what.
anything that doesn't say explicitly women are evil or explicitly I hate women or explicitly women are bad is a very hard judgment to pass, because unless something does that, any other interpretation of it is subjective.
Yeah, and perhaps it's on purpose. Something is shown within the game like that. Maybe there's a point to it. You
You
can't really. The review just can't say claim shit like that and
Yeah,
not back it up with something. You would have to state that it's a subjective opinion, but that wasn't said.
it's like I think there was I th- it was either a Castlevania or a Dracula game that came out recently, and you're basically playing a vampire and you run around killing people or whatever. And part of in the story, there was a scene where I don't know if it was implicated or done straight out, but there was supposed to be like a rape scene. And a lot of reviewers were saying, "Oh, this is misogynistic," and it's like it's a plot device. You may not agree with it being a plot device, but that's exactly what it is. It doesn't mean that the plot device is saying that, oh, the developer hates women or, oh, the developer thinks women are shit. It's just a plot device for the story. It does nothing other than what it does. There isn't an implication or a second meaning behind it. And I think a problem with a lot of these journalists and reviewers is that they're not able to separate that. They're not able to look at things and not try and figure out what it's implying other than what it actually is.
Yeah, and uh, it was 2012, I believe it was, when they showed like the beginning of Tomb Raider, and everyone, like every one of these journalists, I didn't really see any, in the chat rooms or the boards where I was hanging on, where that people were screaming out with the implied rape thing. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember that.
and all the journalists like freaked out because it somehow implied rape. And that's supposedly bad, but I call bullshit because it's actually I would actually see something like that. The only like instances where I can kind of come up with where a character has like serious trauma towards them is Max Payne and yeah, I think the only one I can think of Max Payne where throughout the games the guy is really messed up, like mentally. You even hear you have the coma sequences and stuff like that where you see he's really messed up, and what why is it so bad to actually explore something like rape in the game as a story? I think developers are afraid to tell those stories because of these fucking journalists.
One thing that really irks me is a lot of these people are the same people that often post articles about current rape scandals. And it's like, these people will say that rape is one of the most traumatic things that can ever happen to a woman or a person, period. But at that same time, we aren't able to use those things in video games to show trauma and to show traumatic experiences that make us want to empathize with the character.
Yeah, because that would actually be
And
something very interesting.
and when we do it, they say, "Oh, we're promoting this." It's like, no, it's a plot device to get us to empathize with what the character is going through. We want you to feel the same emotion as if it happened in real life. And it's
Ex-
like, how is it so hard to understand that?
I don't know. It's because because of the outrage of the Tomb Raider, just implying it doesn't really even happen in the game. It's within like the 10 first minutes. But even though there's just a scene where a guy touches her thighs, it created such a huge reaction. It's so retarded, and it's because it won't happen. I just think that because of
I've
these
I've touched more
positives.
people's thighs than people I haven't had sex with than people I have. I mean, the implication of that, it's like, okay, you want to imply that he's going to sexually assault her, but the thing is, did it actually happen in the game? And there,
The right?
yeah, because I
No,
haven't
it didn't.
played that version of Tomb Raider. Um, it didn't even happen. So what the fuck is the big deal? And it's like,
Yeah,
oh, it's the implication of it. It's like, okay, but it didn't actually happen.
yeah, and
So not only are you getting your Jimmy's wrestled over something that didn't happen, you're getting them wrestled over the implication of it, which is of something that didn't happen. What the fuck is that?
yeah, and it's this outrage culture that I'm getting really freaking sick of, and I don't even understand why E3 is even only open to like industry people, because it's just one big circle jerk. Because the journalists are so entitled these days that I had I can't remember where I got this from, but on IGN where they get like so much swag
Oh
and like
yeah, I remember that article.
no, it was a video, but they get so much swag and so many review copies where Greg Miller openly said one time on one of the podcast beyond they were talking, and they had like 10 copies of a game, and it was like first guy who took the review copy got to keep it, basically first one to the mill. And it was just disgusting to hear that these journalists just get fucking games without anything. That's why I think these big sites should pay for the games, and uh, and uh, and the smaller sites should actually get them for free.
I don't think. I mean, I understand why companies send review copies to big companies like GameSpot and MMO Bomb and stuff like that. I understand why they do that because they want to guarantee that they review the game and they want that publicity. But at the same time, it seems like a lot of these companies are just doing, they don't actually enjoy doing it. They're just doing it for the free shit. And it's like some of these people say they don't enjoy gaming. And it's like, if you don't enjoy games, why are you in a position which gives you free games? You're not going to actually use them or appreciate them in any way. You're just appreciating free shit.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry,
why.
but there are other journalism opportunities for that kind of thing that can give you free things that you actually do like. I don't understand
Um,
why it has to be gaming.
yeah, and I feel that this outrage culture from the journalists stems from the entitlement that they have from getting all this free shit. I mean, they get all these statues and and they don't only get the games, but they also get all this extra, like the season passes. They get like statues. They get all the they always get the collector's edition of a game, and they an extra swag as well, like hats and shit like that. And I never see this being disclosed in reviews.
And then some of these people have the audacity to bitch about the people who have paid for the product and have a problem with it. That's what kills me the most. It's like, I'm paying for a product you got for fucking free. I have a reason to complain. I'm spending my money on this.
And then I see they complain about some detail of the game, and when everybody is basically fine with it, then it's because they have such a big audience and a voice. It's the only thing that gets shared around, and that's why sometimes the developer thinks that this is actually a thing, where
Yeah,
like. I mean, look at IGN. They constantly give a Call of Duty a 9 out of 10. They're the biggest freaking company that review games year after year. And they constantly give the game such a good rating, while all the gamers are so pissed off well, when they pay to play the game and they find out it's the same shit game, and they follow the recommendation of the reviewer.
why do you think
Because
the
every
recent um, trailer for the newest Call of Duty game got such horrible ratings? And it was like, people are fucking sick of Call of Duty. It's the same shit every year. They barely add anything. They charge you like fucking the price of another Call of Duty game for map packs and shit. And it's like, you can tell that gaming companies like IGN are nothing but paid shills because of this.
Yeah, and when Call of Duty Ghosts, which was objectively probably the worst game in the series, gets an 8.8 from IGN, there's something freaking wrong. When they don't have the balls to actually give the game like a 6 or 5 out of 10.
Because it's gonna be a huge chunk of their revenue.
I'm seeing in the chat too much water. IGN 7 out of 10. Yeah, yeah, and always see these cons and criticism that are so retarded, like the Ratchet and Crank criticism, where they say a single player game is too occasionally lonely. It's retarded.
That's kind of the point of a single player game. I
Yeah,
mean, it's like saying it's like saying Master Chief is too lonely. Well, that's kind of what he does. That's kind
yeah,
of that's kind of his purpose. You can't just sit up there and ignore the intention for him to be lonely, to be like the sole person coming out of a terrible, terrible situation and defeat the bad guy, and he's the only hero left standing. I mean, that's kind of his thing. Why is that a reason to drop its score? And like particularly with Halo, say someone dropped the score because of that. It's like, well, that's kind of the purpose. So you're basically nitpicking now.
yeah, and a legitimate complaint of Fire Emblem. What's the most recent one? Fire Emblem. Uh, Fire. No, Fire Emblem Fates was it?
Yeah, Fates.
Which was censored, and they just laugh at the faces of people who get a butchered product with less dialogue and story and less gameplay. And when you had the Battlefront before the game came out last year, where no, it was after the release, where people wanted additional content to the game, and IGN just laughed in the faces of the people who wanted more content because the Battlefront 2 had space battles and all this additional stuff which the new Battlefront doesn't have.
I mean, I don't have a problem with people morally objecting to some of the things that were in Fire Emblem Fates, like with the petting game and stuff like that. But to remove that and to prevent people from being able to access that content is a whole nother topic, which I don't think companies should be doing. It's like if you find that type of thing morally objectionable, why didn't the company just add a option to either skip that mission or have that be optional content that those people who do find it morally objectionable don't have to experience?
Yeah,
I
like
don't I mean, that
something.
would only make the game more people more willing to buy it because not only did you keep the original vision of it, you also added an altered vision, which actually didn't even really require you to do anything but to remove said content.
Yeah, a good example of this is Hotline Miami 2, where there is a what should I say, a more a less violent version of the game, which you can just check off before you start the game, or the regular version, more violent one version of the game.
Hmm.
And that's up to the player. That's if there is something like that when you actually turn on the game, and you can actually choose. I don't know. I actually have a problem with that. If you have something morally against this, then you could turn it off. Well, but if you have something you think it's triggering or whatever you want to call it, something you're really against, don't buy the game. Just don't blame the developer for developing a game they wanted to create, and then say you're morally against it, like the GTA review, where you just call a game misogynistic instead of actually uh, at least trying to be objective with that point.
Exactly. It's like I do understand that adding in ways to go around that type of content does become expensive, but it's like you're then waste it's like if you remove content, you then officially have wasted money developing it. So why anyway? Why would you remove it when the fans, the people who are actually spending their money, I'm not talking about critics because they get either review copies for free or they buy it off of the company's payroll, and it's like they don't have to worry about spending their money, but the actual people that are spending their money, you're going to take away something from them and waste your own resources in developing something you're not going to release to your audience. What the fuck kind of shit is that? Because some people find it morally objectionable, okay, then you can release another edition if they're that big of a basis. But I mean, we pretty much already know that the people who are finding these type of issues with the games aren't the people buying these games in the first place.
Yeah, it's a minority, and like the instance with Dead or Alive beach volleyball. Um,
Yeah.
it actually had a solid fan base and got censored because of the moral outrage.
And they're like, well, now you have to import the game. It's like we shouldn't have to go through that there shouldn't I bloody hell. It's like we shouldn't have to go through the process of importing a game just because some people find the game morally objectionable.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat here. Mitch says IGN don't care about good reviews because they're still making a fuck ton of money.
They
Well,
still
yeah,
made good reviews for Destiny to Taken King, and everybody knows how that ended. Destiny is like a shadow of what people thought of it.
um, I actually bought Destiny. I don't think it was that a few days after launch, and I actually enjoyed the gameplay a lot. I think gameplay wise, it's a really good game,
I
and
do think it is an enjoyable game, but they gave it a perfect score, and we're like, everybody who's actually played it knows damn well the game isn't perfect.
oh yeah. But I stopped playing it like after November
Mm-hmm.
of that year. So and I but I still see nobody of the big mainstream journalists of these big sites that haven't don't call out the DLC culture of publications, the microtransactions, day
Yeah,
one DLC. They should add this stuff to the reviews, and online only games should be reviewed after launch, play with real environment. That's why.
it's like DRM, DLC, microtransaction, season passes, and expansion practices. We never see any of these journalists be critical of those. And for a lot of gamers, those are the big things. It's like we're spending extra money on this shit. Why not go over it and state what's wrong with the practices and how these particular companies can improve on a particular game, this certain practice? And it's like, if it's a big gaming company, nobody says shit about it. And they're
Yeah,
just
and
like, well, you gamers always complain and bitch and moan anyway. Just deal with it. And it's like, what the fuck?
we had Colin Moriarty, which who blocked me on Twitter, by the way. Who um when I on Twitter said what did he said something he was being really immature because he said like oh my god PlayStation is so good, blah 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 blah, and I'm saying that that's really not objective journalism right there. You're a journalist and have a big audience. You have a responsibility to your audience to not do this shit. And he said,
But
"No, I'm not a journalist." And I said, "Yes, you are." And here's the fucking definition of of what a journalist is. And then he blocked me.
so you're a glorified blogger. Thanks for admitting it.
Yeah, and this same guy said that gamers were entitled for the day one DLC and the ending of Mass Effect 3.
Day one
It's the same.
DLC. Nobody wants day one DLC. People want a complete fucking game on day one. That's what people want.
Yes, and this is the guy who called gamers entitled because they wanted a complete game with Mass Effect 3.
Oh, I'm sorry that games have recently become half-finished garbage that we have to spend an extra 30, $40 just to get the rest of. I'm sorry that expecting a complete product is so terrible of us.
And when I see shit like that, it baffles my mind. And IGN even afterwards, like because they added an extra like option in the end, where in Mass Effect 3, this synthesis, where what if you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. Um, and they that's when they actually went out and defended the Bioware and said that now they were fans were destroying art, which basically mean the developer had to improve the game or the ending because fans were outraged, and they were saying they're interfering with the vision of the developer and shit like that, you know.
You
And
mean the same
uh,
people that bitched about Fem Shepherd? These people are complaining about the developer's vision, really?
yeah, these guys are fucking retards when the self-awareness is zero, and so much selective outrage is so retarded when gamers actually want something done well. They call them entitled, and when the developer actually changes something, you go and defend the developer. These journalists no longer speak for gamers. I
It's
think.
like I think it's like this with the games are our argument. It doesn't matter what you believe, but if you do believe that games are art, you're going to have to accept the fact that the interpretation of art is completely subjective. You're just going to have to accept that if you want to call games art,
Yeah,
which means that your experience is not going to be what everybody else is experiencing, and that when you make objective declarative statements like that, you're saying that games are not just art. I mean, you're also then talking about the developer's intention, which, unless you hear the developer state explicitly, you don't know. And even then, they could be lying.
yeah, because they're not gonna show their hands like outright to everyone.
I mean, their developers are out. I wouldn't say developers are out to fuck gamers over, but they're out to make money where they can. And if you accept a half finished product, they're going to keep giving you half finished products. That's just the way things go. But these journalists don't seem to realize that just because everyone is releasing half finished products, it doesn't mean we're not going to have a problem with some products more than others. Some products are just better than others, and we're going to have complaints about other products more than better products.
Yeah, but again, that's kind of subjective because I would probably like a game which you think is shit or wouldn't
Yeah,
be interested in.
but
I'm
if you said a game is shit and you gave reasons why you thought this game was shit, I wouldn't say you were entitled for doing that. I would just say you're simply stating what issues you do have with it.
yeah. I'm looking at the chat. Last Sigil is saying as far as Manhunt 2, I thought it was wrong to censor it, even though I think it's an inferior game. It was wrong to censor Manhunt 2 as well as Hatred. Hatred should have been available for consoles. Yeah, that's a good point.
Hatred should have been available for wherever Hatred was able to get into. If a game publisher didn't want to publish it, that's on them. But trying to outright ban the game, as you saw a lot of people doing, I think is what is there. It's a very dangerous road to go down.
Yeah. Um, but again, I always go back to this disconnect between the audience and the consumer, because when at E3, where it's just industry people, and you go out drinking with these and talking with industry people, you have a bond with these people, which is unethical.
I mean, it's all right to form bonds, but you need to disclose that if you're going to review a topic by somebody that you do have a bond with, or they could sub you in for someone who doesn't have that same connection with the company. I mean, I don't have a problem with people reviewing products with of their close friends. I think in that case you're still able to give an objective review, but you need to disclose that either you're a review or bias, or that you are friends with either the company or the person whose product you're reviewing.
Yeah,
I
but
don't think that's something hard to do, but journalists don't do that. And that's why people have an issue with it.
yeah, but we constantly just look at deep freeze. They they don't do that. They give money or receive money or have some sort of conflict of interest with the industry, and still review games and give them high scores or whatever, give them coverage. I mean, Jesus Christ, there's on IGN, there's what's it called, IGN First, where they basically advertise a game for a whole fucking month.
Gaming
They
journalism has
basically
become. Oh, go ahead.
no, it's the same thing with Game Informer, but I can understand Game Informer because they're subsidized by GameStop. So when they choose a game on their magazine, I can kind of understand where they're coming from. But when IGN does this, it's a shill one whole month where they shill the game. They show gameplay. They interview like the devs and have exclusive pieces on a game, which other sites don't get. That I would say that's highly unethical. Even the preview events where you get to play games under certain circumstances and are watched, and even the review events, that should be fucking disclosed.
I mean, as far as that goes, I don't particularly think that it's so much of a breach of ethics as it is a breach of journalistic integrity. Because if you're playing a game under favorable circumstances, you're not going to be experiencing what people who buy the game are going to be experiencing.
Yeah, but I can still consider that being ethical, because if you're ethical, you're being transparent and you're disclosing that you were on a preview of an event which they probably paid for under limited circumstances, and they don't do that. All these journalists do are they come back and tell them how the game was, and are shilling the game, going right into the hand of the publisher or the PR, whoever designed this.
And another problem is that nobody seems to be asking the hard questions when they do this either. It's like, you went to a press event, fine, but why aren't you asking the questions that gamers are wanting to ask these people about problems that might arise? Like, if you are testing out a Call of Duty game and you recognize that this game has the same exact skill set, weapon set, perk set, everything from the last generation of Call of Duty games, why not question the developer on that? That's not a very in-depth question. It's something very basic you could ask, but nobody does this. When it comes to like DRM practices, nobody asks the developer like, why do they have this specific DRM from the product and issues that can arise with this particular product in DRM. It's
Yeah,
things like that that nobody goes over. And I think that's the big reason that a lot of people are switching to like YouTubers and Twitch streamers for their game reviews and their gameplay footage now, because these people are often willing to ask those hard questions.
yeah, that goes into my point, which I was going to make next. Um, you remember during the Xbox One reveal, nobody from the reveal of the Xbox One to E3 and even to the launch of the Xbox One, there was no one questioning. They were the only thing the big sites were doing was reporting on that it had DRM and that Kinect was mandatory, and the only one who actually had the balls, even though I have huge issues with what he does on YouTube, was Angry Joe. He had the balls to go to Major Nelson, aka Larry Rib, and call him out. Why the hell do you have DRM on the box, which should be able to play offline? And he asked those questions and put the spotlight or put him on the spot right there and then, and nobody else did that. Nobody.
Yeah. It's like if you're playing a party game, for instance, like that's one. Team Fortress 2. Imagine if Team Fortress 2 had DRM and you were only able to play it online. Do you know how fucking pissed people would be and how much that would affect the gameplay? Most of the time when I play TF2 now, it isn't even online. It's on like a LAN server or something. Things like this are like questions. And we understand that game developers have to look out for their own assets and their profit, but sometimes the DRM thing will end up losing you a lot of customers.
Yeah, and during the whole SimCity thing, Diablo thing, um, Titanfall, all these, Titanfall even got a glowing review because of it. It was online. It had DRM and had no private matches, private like you could not do groups or whatever, private lobbies and shit like that. And nobody, I can't remember anybody calling that shit out. IGN even gave Titanfall an 8.8 with a single, the pathetic single player story it had. It got an 8.8 or 8.9. I
Titanfall is
can't
now
remember.
a dead game on PC. It's a dead fucking game.
Yeah, it dropped off like a few months. The players ran like Battlefront, and where there is no. I have to commend the gaming press with Battlefront because they actually gave them a worse Metacritic than Titanfall. But even then, Titanfall had no single player story, and IGN, the biggest site, gave this an 8.8 and thought it was okay. Then it's not okay to if you're going to do a single player story, actually do a single player story. Um, nothing like half.
Why would you need to be online for a single player story? That's like a game that there are there are a couple online PC games that I know have done that, and that there's nothing more enraging than a game with a single player that you can't play offline.
Yeah. Um, and I just get so frustrated with um with these sites that constantly don't ask the hard questions because they're afraid of being blacklisted or shit like that. And consumers are the only ones complaining, but they don't get any outlet. All they can do is like tweet them and get ignored, or go to a chat board or chat room and vent their frustration.
Yeah. It seems like developers just have journalists underneath their thumb right now.
No, it's not like that. It's not under the thumb. It's a mutual agreement where, I mean, I can understand the publishers' uh, uh, view here because journalists are basically the PR for the games these days.
Yeah. I mean, but the difference is it's not the developer's job to not be a sucker for a particular company or free goodies. It's your job as a journalist and a reviewer to not be a sucker for those kind of things. That's
Yeah,
what people pay you for. That's what people come to you for. People go to gonzo journalists too, but at least they're able to disclose that that's what they do. I don't think there should be any shame in being a gonzo journalist, but at least disclose that with your audience.
I have no issues with people who only are YouTubers and um like we have people like K. I don't know if you know who he is. KSI, who only plays like FIFA games and is very biased towards FIFA and likes the game and plays all that's in the game. But when someone like that is more trustworthy, who openly is shows his bias compared to journalists, well, now we have a freaking problem.
It's like, for instance, have you ever heard of either ArenaNet or Guild Wars 2?
What was the first one?
ArenaNet?
No, I have heard of Guild Wars too.
ArenaNet is the company that publishes it. Um,
Okay.
I think. Okay, well, recently there was an issue with the expansion for that game, and one of the things that they had marketed in the expansion, the legendary weapons, they recently canceled all of them after releasing one more, like indefinitely. So there's no idea if or when they're ever going to come back. And a lot of people were pissed about that. I love the game, and I'm biased towards ArenaNet because they make a lot of smart decisions. But when they fuck up, I'm not gonna sit there with my head in the fucking sand saying that they didn't fuck up, which is what a lot of journalists don't seem to be able to do, especially with companies like Ubisoft.
Oh yeah. Um, I still I can't fathom why nobody mentioned in the review. On day one, there was $100 microtransaction for the game.
What was it for?
Basically to do shit faster.
Yeah. I just understand that developers need to survive, but having microtransactions on day one to skip the game's content is kind of a shitty practice.
Yeah, and the game was broken as fuck, and I can still give it a 7.8, which is almost a great score, even though it was riddled with freaking bugs. Mitch says in the chat, KSI has another channel where he plays other games. Yeah, but you know what I mean. On his main channel, he plays like mostly FIFA.
Yeah.
Uh, Anyways, back to again, when you have day one DLC, a patch, shit like that, it should be disclosed. Saying that I played another game that you did.
It's like, I think we as gamers are pretty understanding that shit is gonna go wrong on launch day. I
Oh
think
yeah.
everybody is familiar with launch day issues, but when you have part of your game that isn't on that disc because you couldn't wait a week or two to finalize the content, then I have a problem.
Yeah. But also when you do reviews, most games these days coming on the new generation of consoles and PC even, um, you have day one DLC or a day one patch, and it's not you're not effectively playing the same game that the consumer is playing. So either
It's
you're playing a worse game or a different game altogether.
it's become a very common thing before where that was something that really only multiplayer shooters did. Now every game is doing it.
Yeah.
And partially it's because we let them get away with it, but also because nobody with a platform says anything about this shit
Oh
except for the YouTube community pretty much.
yeah, they're the only ones at this point. Um, it just frustrates the hell out of me. I don't know if the chat has anything they wanna share towards this. I think we've covered the topic pretty much. Yeah, unless there is anything you wanna add.
Not particularly.
Do you wanna shill your Twitter or something like that?
Oh, crap. I don't even remember my damn Twitter handle. But you can just find me at Frostraco Music or Frostraco.
Alrighty. Oh, we have a quick thing in the chat before we close. Have you seen some of the developers deleting Steam reviews or comments about the game?
Yeah, I've been hearing about that for a while, especially with things on the Steam Greenlight.
Well, they do that all the time, don't they?
Very often. It's been happening on YouTube a lot lately too. If a game trailer gets bad comments or anything, there have been people deleting comments on there and stuff like that.
Wow.
Blizzard has been sort of doing the same thing with Overwatch a little bit in regards to the Overwatch porn thing.
Yeah, I heard about that. Um, yeah, it's shitty. And you won't hear the journalist talking about this. I can guarantee you that.
Of
Very few
course not.
are
Of
It's
course not.
only remember it's only censorship if the government does it.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
Except
then we
when the
have
government is doing it.
Archon. You've missed the whole entire freaking stream.
Did I? Oh well. I was
Yeah.
busy.
Oh, well, you can kind of share your thoughts before we kind of close. We were talking about like journalists and the disconnect between journalists and the audience. Like, journalists not mentioning microtransaction, all this shit, and ignoring obvious shit that consumer get mad about. What do you think about like the gaming landscape and what do you actually like in a review when you want to watch or read a review?
Personally, like I don't check out reviews for the most part, but like if I was going to read a review to see what the game was about and whether I should buy it, like the whole like 8 out of 10 thing is not required. It's nice to put it in perspective with a score, but it's not required. I'd like them to actually like summarize what they know of the plot or characters and also provide screenshots and shit like that. and provide details of like what the game is going to play as. Like, is it a first-person shooter? Is it third-person fighter brawler, or stuff like that? Is there going to be multiplayer? Is it going to be all online like Metal Gear Solid 5, or like with Dark Souls and stuff, where it was constantly online? But yeah, like the other thing too, and this is kind of funny too, because I just got done. I don't know if either of you read Dragon Ball Multiverse Online, do you?
No.
I'm familiar with Dragon Ball, but not the Dragon Ball multiverse.
Okay, basically it's a comic that a couple of people make for free. It's a fan thing, so it's not canon. It's not something that Toriyama has signed off on or anything. So it's not actually, true within the universe. But it's got a pretty good story going on, and it's been being made for a few years now. So it's got over 1,000 pages in the thing. And at the moment, there's a special going on, which is kind of like it's kind of providing backstory to one of the universes in the tournament that's going on. And a lot of people are complaining that it's taking too long because the pacing is so slow. But they're not saying that it's a bad special per se. They're just saying that they wish it would be going a little bit faster, because you're getting maybe one page with 4 panels just showing destruction of a planet that we've already seen thousands of times, because it's Dragon Ball Z, for Christ's sakes. We know what it looks like when a planetary station comes crashing into Earth,
Yeah.
But you'd see all these people in the comments, whether they're supporting the authors or not. Like, there's a couple of people that are moderators for the comments, and then every once in a while you'll see someone that is also an artist. But mostly it's just moderators that are going, huh, you should be grateful that this is even being written for free, and quit complaining and fuck off and all that kind of shit. And it's just kind of like, if they have like legit complaints, regardless of how they're saying it, like, you should look into it. If there's a possibility that the complaint is legitimate, maybe you should look into it and possibly remedy it. It's not required that you do so, but maybe you should take it seriously, because if you don't, there's a very good chance you're going to piss off your fan base. And because you do this for free, if you lose your entire fan base, you're fucked. And that kind of... I'm sorry, what?
Do people donate money to these people?
I don't know, honestly. I would assume there's a way you can, but they don't like overtly ask for it or say, hey, you can donate here, because I don't even know if they do or not. But I would assume there probably is some way you can give them money if you wish. But the point of bringing that up is that it's kind of a parallel to journalists. Like, if you're just blowing off criticisms from your readers or your fan base, then you're going to end up pissing them off to the point where they're just going to say, okay, fuck you, I'm done. Bye-bye. So it's just like, yeah, if you're going to be like, I'm not going to tell you all this stuff like you want, I'm not going to cover the subjects you want me to cover, or your ability to cover such subjects are not up to the limit that the readers would like, then, the power of the buck is going to go elsewhere. That's basically what I think on the matter.
And gaming right now, how bad do you think it is?
It's not like on the level of the apocalypse, like it's not the end of the world, but it's pretty fucking shitty. It's the difference from like walking down the street and thinking this is a lovely day, and having to trudge through the sewers and clean it up on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we've been kind of using examples of shoddy journalism. I think the best example we used was when nobody in the gaming press during the Xbox One reveal or a pre-launch called the PR machine, or everyone involved with it, the developers and Microsoft. Nobody except for Angry Joe called them out on why the fuck does it have to have DRM, and why the hell is the Kinect mandatory? Because nobody nobody of the journalists actually asked those questions to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I have my own issues with Angry Joe just on how he does some game reviews and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, he does keep a pretty good eye on a lot of the shit going on within the industry, and he does have some good points when it comes to what the industry tries to sneak by customers. So yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I have my issues with Angry Joe, but at least he had the balls to call them out on this shit when nobody else did.
Yeah.
So, are there any examples where you think the press just dropped the ball completely?
Honestly, I haven't read. As I said before, I don't read reviews much at all in the first place.
It doesn't
And
have to
since
be reviewed.
Gamergate has happened, I haven't even fucking bothered.
It doesn't have to be reviewed, by the way.
Oh, just where they've got covered articles on something,
Yeah.
basically. Um, yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know any. I could probably think of some if I had some time, but yeah, not off the top of my head.
There's one I
Yeah.
know of in particular that was for a game in the Drakensang series,
Hmm.
and the review for it was completely bullshit. Like, you can tell they didn't even play the game.
Hmm.
They got one ending, and then they thought that was it, and they wrote some bullshit down.
Yeah,
Interesting.
as you have with, as I mentioned with Jim Sterling, and you have even Kevin Van Ord who didn't finish a game, which he reviewed, and just wrote a review and just published it on the website.
There's a reviewer that does like first impressions named the Lazy Peon, and
Hmm.
he doesn't he does like a lot of reviews on MMOs and stuff like that, and he like says like, I've played it for this long and I got this far and this is what I think of it, but he doesn't make it seem like he reviewed the whole entire game but didn't do shit.
Yeah.
There's a night
Um,
and day difference between an ethical journalist and somebody who's just fucking around. And it's little things like that that just let you know that the reviewer is being sincere in their review.
yeah. Anything else we want to come when it comes to gaming? It was kind of related to E3 and how journalists conduct themselves. We can kind of close on what games you are looking forward to this E3.
Um, I don't know any off the top of my head that are coming out at E3 because I've been kind of out of the loop on it. But actually, no, there was one. Shit, I can't remember which one it is now. There's one that was getting hyped up recently, but I can't remember what it was.
Oh, okay. Frost, do you have anything you're looking forward to?
Oh, nah. As far as E3 goes, I don't have any interest in it much anymore. But on the MMO side of things, I am waiting for a few things that haven't showed up stateside yet, like Riders of Icarus.
Hmm.
All right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Mass Effect Andromeda the most.
Oh, I
That's
didn't even know that was coming out.
no, well, they're gonna show it off for the first time this E3, I believe. So that's the game I'm looking forward to.
Cool.
Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much our stream. Even though you did join a little bit late, Archon, we're gonna shit talk off there. Yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye.